Yeah, I think one of the strengths of the documentary was that it was really balanced in terms of its viewpoint. I think a danger with taking on this kind of topic is you get that kind of Daily Mail scaremongering, technology is destroying our young people, that kind of idea, or the reaction against that, which is kind of the technological evangelists who this idea that technology is sort of going to save the world, this technological determinism that you find. And what's really good about yours is it kind of says, well, neither of those ideals are really particularly true. There's a third way, essentially, where we look at the positives of technology, but we also look at the possible dangers of it and the possible issues associated with it. And then the very fact that you ask your audience to essentially make up their own mind based on the content that they've heard, I think is a real strength. I think the other real thing which is really striking about it, and I think is really impressive to do with that, is that you kind of didn't really focus down. So you didn't focus down on one specific, it's kind of young people and technology, but I mean that's broad sort of church, and you can touch on ideas to do with body image, and ideas to do with sort of their cognitive behaviour and their development and their learning and that kind of thing. And maybe a concern about it was that, well, that's very broad, but actually you managed to give a really, really comprehensive overview, which doesn't feel slight or doesn't feel it feels like it's got depth, and it feels like there's a real consideration of the subject matter, and I think that's very clever. So yeah, I found that very impressive. No, I think you can come to your own conclusion. I think one of the things that supports that a lot is the use of people like Graham Jones, your internet psychologist, who actually he sort of what's quite good about him is he maybe doesn't give the opinion that you'd expect. So actually, he ends the documentary by kind of saying, well, actually, in terms of have teenagers' brains actually changed? Well, no, not really. And I think there's quite a bit of that in your documentary, where the people with weight and sort of gravitas maybe don't say the things you maybe expect them to say, which then makes the audience think a little bit more about their own opinions. I think the interviews you've got are really impressive, and I think as I say, the gravitas of those people, Tim Mundell and Graham Jones, allows you to come to your own informed opinion. Yeah, and I think there's several things that you've used to sort of create cohesion there. I think sort of the choice of the voice on the radio advert is quite significant, because it's this sophisticated, it's got an intellectualism associated with it. The sophisticated tones, the kind of measured, educated tones, I think tie into the questioning and the depth of the documentary. And I think the poster as well just reminds us that it's about young people, and the effect of technology on young people. So I think it does the very fact you've got your tagline is essentially a question. It does promote that idea of a question, and that you're not essentially promoting a particular ideology in terms of technology is dangerous or technology is fantastic. You're essentially asking a question, and then asking the audience to come up to their own conclusions. And I think the poster and the radio advert both do that, because they use this questioning technique throughout both of them. I think your campaign would stand out, as I said, because of it takes this third way. It doesn't sort of say it's bad or it's good. It says, these are the ways, these are the different discourses we can have about it, and therefore the audience can come to their own conclusion. I think what's particularly good about the poster is that the poster is quite fresh. It's quite young looking. It's quite cool looking. It's got a young model on there. The colours are quite bright, and yet you've gone to pains in terms of choosing using your fonts to make sure that they're formal. So there was the underlying impression that this is a sophisticated, serious documentary, but by making it quite bright and by making it engaging, you grab your audience straight away. You grab the attention of the audience, and then from that, it's then a more sophisticated audience which will explore the documentary and explore its questions. So I think that's a really good way of getting your audience in there, because even a sophisticated audience, it doesn't matter how sophisticated an audience is, they're still going to be more attracted by something that looks interesting, by the bright colours, by the stylish aesthetic, that kind of thing. So I think you grab them in, and then there's the real depth within the documentary itself. I'm struggling really to think of. I think it's a really impressive production. As I say, I think the depth it manages to give, the ability to move from sort of the general to the specific, is really quite impressive. There is one thing that's really striking about it is the quality of the sound. There's just one bit, which is your vox pops, which are actually really good. I mean, you secured a really excellent range of opinions, and it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel sort of underdone, it doesn't feel like you only collected a few, so you had to choose ones that actually weren't very good. I think the quality of the vox pops is excellent, and that's the only one where the sound is just, because it's that external sound, because you've got the wind, that's the only one, because of the quality of the sound in the rest of the production, and it's so clear and precise, that's the only one that it stands out a little bit in terms of not quite as good in terms of quality. But in terms of could you have changed that, I don't know how you could have changed that, because it was exterior, and I think it needs to be exterior, because obviously you frame the documentary with the mise-en-scène of the busy urban city, which links into the ideas of technology, which in itself is a very clever thing to do. It's not this obvious, we're talking about technology, so we've got to show technology all the time. There's a very clever sort of montage of the urban busy lifestyle, so I think you've got to have them outside. So I don't really know how you would have sort of gone about that, apart from with more extensive sound equipment. But I think that's the only really thing about the production that stands out to me as something that I would change.